The Real-Eyez Destiny radio show is brought to you by author and certified trainer Faye Hill's Master the Art of Giving, a guide to funding church projects with no debt. Order your copy on Amazon.com, Amazon Kindle, or faye-hill.com now.
Closer to my dreams.
And now, Season 2 of the Real-Eyez Destiny radio show. Coming up on today's Real-Eyez Destiny radio show.
If you want to invent something in your life, it starts off with an intention, right? So it starts off with an intention, and eventually you want it to become an invention. So invention means you want it to show up. And so your invention is something, but it's not something that you intended on.
That is some good stuff.
There you go.
Is
Closer to my dreams.
She's the author of the highly sought-after goalie coaching system, who is passionate about helping seasoned entrepreneurs become unstuck in their thinking, abilities, and revenue. She's a coach, author, and speaker who has sharpened her ability to stretch the vision, mission, and goals of those strong enough to withstand the journey of entrepreneurship. As the founder and visionary of Collette, Portis & Co., Collette Portis is a business coach with 20-plus years of experience helping clients think big, strategize for success, and increase revenue. Colette's mission is to change the lives of whole families because winning is the only option. This is the Real-Eyez Destiny radio show.
Welcome to Real-Eyez Destiny Radio with Collette Portis. Season 2, we're totally excited because our lineup of guests are absolutely amazing. And so I'm so happy to have the privilege of having conversation with phenomenal people in the world. And today is no exception. This guy he doesn't even know he's been like a mentor to me for like 6 years, right? It's almost stalker-like, but it's cool. But Mr. Jerry the Rhino Clark is a coach, trainer, and mentor who has collaborated with many leaders in sales, marketing, internet marketing, and network marketing sectors. He is the founder of ClubRhino.com, and he is often referred to as the trainer's trainer because a great number of the top direct sale trainers have either learned or been personally coached by Jerry. Jerry has trained over 1 million people in over 45 countries. And so it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce to some and reintroduce to others, Mr. Jerry Clark. How are you today, sir?
I am doing wonderful, Collette. Thank you. I appreciate it. And definitely it's a privilege to be here with you.
I know, a little bit about you because I've read your work and I've listened to your audios and things like that. But tell my audience a little bit more about you.
So, I was born and raised in a garage in Mississippi. So that's one little fact that a lot of people really think is fascinating. And, we were raised in not a really great area. There's a lot of poverty. And so my mother decided to move to California. When we moved to California, I was about 7 years old. And when we got there, we once again didn't have a lot of money. So we had to move to an area that they used to call the ghetto. Now they call it the urban disadvantaged locational area. So we lived there for a while. There's a lot of violence, a lot of crime, a lot of poverty once again. And I really didn't understand what the whole concept of poverty was really about until I was about 9 years old. I kind of figured it out because every time I would ask my mom, can I get a new pair of pants or can I get this or that? She would always say, no, we don't have the money. Money doesn't grow on trees. She would say the same thing over and over again. So I finally got to the point that I realized that if you want something in life, you got to have this thing called money. And I had to figure out how can I get some of it since my mom obviously doesn't have none of it. Yeah. So I have to figure out how to get some of it myself. And I was only 9 or 10. And so the only thing I figured I could do that was legal, because there were some things that I could have done that were not legal at that age, believe it or not, in the area that I lived in, was a paper route. So I got a paper route. I started delivering papers. But I wanted to deliver papers in an area that had nice homes. That was my requirement. I said, I want to deliver a paper in a different neighborhood. I don't want to deliver it in this neighborhood I live in. And the lady gave me a paper out that was in an area that had nice homes. I mean, they had 2-car garages, they had families living together, they had nice front yards and all this stuff. And this was stuff that I wasn't used to seeing. So the reason I wanted to deliver papers in that area is because I wanted to figure out what the secret was. Why did these people have these type of homes while we lived over in this area? And why do they seem, and their kids seem to have all the things that I want while we don't? And so after delivering the papers in that area for about 3 or 4 months, I figured out about 30 or so people that I can interview, that I can talk to, that I can ask a question that I thought would feel comfortable with me asking the question. And sure enough, I asked the question. So here's my question. So I said, ma'am, one day I want to be able to have a nice home like you have. I want to have a nice family. I want to have nice cars like you have parked in your driveway. What do I have to do in order to be in a situation like that when I grow up? And all of them told me the same thing. You got to go to school, get a good education, go work hard because you're going to get this job and you're going to move up the corporate ladder and the whole 9 yards. They all told me the same thing. And I didn't know any better. I was like, oh, this is great. This is wonderful. Okay, I'm going to do that. And so I started studying even more in school than what I was already a good student, but I became an even better student. Got great grades. I did everything I was told to do. And that was like the big beginning, so to speak, of me having some type of direction, of me knowing what to do. It's like, okay, this is what I got to do. And then the second thing that really kind of happened for me to change the trajectory of my life was I was driving down the freeway one day with my mom. Obviously, she was doing the driving. And we saw this car. It was a nice car. I'd never seen a car like this before. I said, Mom, what kind of car is that? And she said, that's a Mercedes-Benz. I said, what? A Mercedes-Benz? I had never really seen one in real life, because it looked real nice, because where we were, we really didn't see nice cars. And she said, yeah, that's what it is. I said, man, why come we don't have one of those? Because we were driving around in something called a Pacer. I mean, I know you probably never heard of that.
No, I've heard of that.
I think it was orange and it had like yellow stripes or something like that. And we were driving, and then our window was broke. It couldn't go up. We didn't have any air conditioning and all that stuff. And she said, yeah. She said, do you want to know what that guy did to get that car? I was like, oh my goodness, my mom knows this guy? I mean, how does she know what he did? I said, sure. What did he do? She said, he went to school, got a good grades. He went out, he got a good job. I'm like, what? I said, even my mom knows the secret? I said, if she knows the secret, why come we're broke? I said, this doesn't make sense. And so I got even more excited, though, about doing, just doing well in school and everything else. So anyway, by the time I graduate from high school, of course, I'm going to go to college. That's the logical thing to do. And when I get to college, something happened that was just really transformational for me. My sophomore year in college, I came across a magazine called Success Magazine. And many people may have heard of that magazine. But I came across that magazine. I read it from cover to cover. And in the middle of it, there was an offer for 16 audio tapes. And these were like motivational tapes, inspirational tapes. And I had never heard of or never listened to anything like that before. I thought it was silly. I was like, really? People are going to spend $200 or $300 on this stuff? I said, there's no way I'm buying this stuff. I said, but let me just read the explanations of them, the descriptions of them, because it was 2 pages. One page, it talked about the first 8 tapes, and the second page talked about the second 8 tapes. And the very first tape was called Think and Grow Rich by a guy named Napoleon Hill. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. I never heard of this guy named Napoleon Hill, but this whole concept, Think and Grow Rich, that sounds interesting. I was like, is he saying that it's possible to think and grow rich? Because if he's saying that, I think I can do that. I think I can think, then I can grow rich. This is amazing. But I'm not going to buy the other 15 audio tapes, but I'm going to buy this one. I'm just going to buy this one audio tape. And then the next tape was called, the Science of Getting Rich. I'm like, what? There's a science of getting rich? I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to know what that is. I said, okay, forget it. I'm buying the second tape too, but I'm not going to buy the next 14 tapes. The third tape had the nerve to be called The Success Formula That Never Fails, is what it was called. The Success Formula That Never Fails. I was like, oh my goodness, there's a success formula and it never fails. It was by a guy named W. Clement Stone. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I got to get that tape too. So you probably can guess that out of all 16 tapes, I bought all of them. I went from knowing that I wasn't going to buy none of them for sure to buying all of them. So I bought all 16 tapes, and those tapes really started to transform everything for me. It transformed my consciousness, transformed the way I thought about life, the way I thought about myself, the way I thought about what's possible, the way I thought about everything, really, because I was listening to all of this success information instead of listening and surrounding myself with the people that were from my neighborhood who were only talking about what you can't do, what you can't have, what's impossible, what won't work. Mm-hmm. That's the conversation I heard my whole life. So all of a sudden I go from there to hearing people say stuff like, you might as well think big instead of thinking small, because it takes the same amount of energy to think big as it does to think small. I'm like, what? I'm like, this is amazing. And I kept listening to that type of information, and it really changed everything for me. So from there, I was attracted to an opportunity. It was a direct sales opportunity. I was 19 years old by that time, and I got plugged into this direct sales opportunity. And listening to those tapes that had changed my consciousness, I believe, is what really assisted me in being able to take the action to be able to produce results. So within about 8 or 9 months of getting started in that company, I was generating a 5-figure monthly income. So I was at a 6-figure level by the time I was almost 20. So I was like 19 years old, generating 5 figures a month. And I just continued from there. So by the time I was 26, I was a millionaire and multimillionaire before I was 30 and all that. And during that time, between 26 and 30 is when people really started to come to me saying, hey, Jerry, can you teach us what you know? Can you let us know a little bit about how you were able to do the things you were able to do in the time frame that you were able to do it? Because by that time, I had called myself retiring. It's like, okay, I'm going to retire. I got a bunch of money. It's going to be great. Remember, I was like 26 years old when I called myself retiring. Yeah. So I didn't do anything for like 2 years. I didn't do anything. It was boring after like 6 months, but I still put up with it for another year and a half. So 2 years of just kind of hanging out, traveling around the world, having a great time, and saying no to all the people that asked me to come and talk to their people. Can you come talk to our group? I would say, no, I'm retired. I don't do that. And then eventually one person just called me like 12 or 13 times, asking me, like begging me. He was like crying on the phone, asking me to come and talk. I was like, man, this guy really wants me to come and speak to his group, I guess. And then he offered me a bunch of money. I was like, oh my goodness, you should have said that the first time. He never said anything about money. And I didn't know he was going to offer me money. So he offered me a bunch of money, like tens of thousands of dollars to come and talk. So I was like, man, this is amazing. I said, okay, I'll come and talk. Sure, I'll do it. So I went and I spoke, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I was like, man, this is awesome. People loved it. And then they asked me, can you come back and do it again? So I came back, and it's like, hey, there's some people over here in this state that didn't get a chance to come. Can you go to that state and talk? So the next thing you know, I must have spoke about 100 times over the next 4 years to that company, to that group and that company. And it took me around the world. And then by that time, other people and other companies started asking me to come and talk. So by that time, I was speaking all over the place. And I spent probably 15 years straight traveling about 7 times around the world each year, sharing a message of hope, of specific strategies on how people can go from zero to hero, basically, from them to go from where they are to where they really want to be. And during that period of time, I created a series of, audio trainings and teachings and so forth that could be with people while I'm not with them. And now I spend time coaching other trainers, other people that want to do what I was doing. I don't want to travel 7 times around the world anymore. That's not what I want to do anymore. That's a lot of traveling. But the other people might want to go out and really share their message with people all over the place. So they come to me. I show them how to put together these programs that are going to add value to people's lives. And that's where I spend most of my time today. About 16 hours a week is how much I work nowadays. And the rest of the time I just spend with my family and get to kind of kick back. So it's been great.
This is REAL-Eyez Destiny Radio with Collette Portis, and we'll be right back with my guest, Jerry Clark, and he'll be talking about how he did not know he was an entrepreneur. He just had an Atari.
The REAL-Eyez Destiny radio show is brought to you by author and certified trainer Faye Hill's Master the Art of Giving, a guide to funding church projects with no debt. Order your copy on Amazon.com, Amazon Kindle, or faye-hill.com now.
Closer to my dreams.
Are you tired of being asked to donate money to your church? Do you attend a church that needs a program to raise funds without any additional out-of-pocket cost to the members? Check out the new book by author and certified trainer Faye Hill, Master the Art of Giving, a guide to funding church projects with no debt. This is a guide that your pastor and church leaders need to read. They can use this step-by-step guide to present instructions to church members on how to redirect their financial resources to contribute to the funding of church projects. They will learn that by modifying personal spending habits, it requires no additional dollars out of pocket. Growth is the result of careful planning. Faye Hill is a certified trainer that can conduct a workshop at your church that will convert spending into giving. Order your copy today at Amazon.com or your Amazon Kindle, or go to faye-hill.com and schedule a consultation by author and certified trainer Faye Hill now.
This is REAL-Eyez Destiny Radio with Collette Portis, and back with my guest, Jerry Clark. I never get tired of hearing your story, and every time I hear your story, I always learn something new. And you mentioned they kept asking you to speak, and you kept telling them no, and then finally you said yes because they were offering you a lot of money. But it makes me wonder, like, at that point, did you think of yourself as a speaker? Like, who did you think you were? Because obviously that, I would assume, was the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. Would that be a correct assumption?
Well, I mean, my entrepreneurial journey started, way back, when I was a kid. I didn't even know it. My entrepreneurial journey started when I didn't know I was an entrepreneur. When I was about 12 years old, living in the bad neighborhood that I was telling you about, no one in that neighborhood had Atari. There's an Atari, video games back then was called Atari. And no one back then had that because they couldn't afford it. And I knew that. But I knew everyone in my neighborhood would love to be able to play it. So one Christmas, my mom said, "So what do you want for Christmas?" And I knew that, I might get like a $20 gift or something like that. She always tried to give whatever she could, $20, $30 maybe, pushing it. So I told her, I said, "Look, the Atari game was probably, maybe a couple $100 maybe or something back then, $150, $200. So I told her, I said, "Look, I want this Atari game, and I know it's cost quite a bit of more money than what I'm typically going to get as a gift. So I would like for you to tell everybody in the family who's going to give me any gift at all to instead contribute so I can, get an Atari video game."
You
and
were so
that's
smart.
What she did. Everyone, yeah, so they all contribute like $5, maybe $10 sometimes for some people. So a bunch of $5 or $10 came in from all the family, all the relatives, and so forth. And I was able to get a Atari video game. And then what I did is I started renting gameplay to the kids in my neighborhood. So I would charge them 10 cents to come and play. And
wow.
So eventually I had a pretty big operation going. Too many kids were coming by the house. My mom had to shut it down. So she had to shut that down. But see, I was an entrepreneur then. That was the beginning of my entrepreneur thinking that, hey, I can actually rent something out, a service out to other kids, keep them out of trouble. I didn't think about keeping them out of trouble, though, but that's really what it was doing. Keep them out of trouble. They can have fun playing games they want to play. They couldn't do it, but now they can at an affordable amount, 10 cents. I mean, they can afford 10 cents. And I had a whole house full of kids coming over to play. "Oh, it's my turn. It's my turn." It was almost like we were like video arcade, games. So my mom just got upset. She shut it down because there's too many kids coming over. But that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial enterprise. The second part of my entrepreneurial enterprise was when I became a paper boy. I think I told you that.
Oh, yes.
But what I didn't tell you is that by the time I was 16, I had like 5 or 6 paper routes. And the reason I had that many paper routes, I figured something out. One day, when I was about 12 or 13 or something in that range, I got sick. But remember, I had to do the papers every day. But I got sick. I couldn't do my paper route. But there was a friend of mine who lived around the corner who would go with me on my paper routes most of the time. He would ride his bike, just follow me, and we would just, he would just go with me. And so he became used to my route. So he knew my route. So I asked him, his name was John. I said, John, I'm not feeling well, man. I can't do my paper route today, but can you do it for me? I said, you know it. You've been with me like for 2 years, pretty much riding around with me. He said, sure, I'll do it. And I said, I'll pay you, you know? He said, oh, that's really great. So he did it. And I said, I wasn't feeling good the next day either. I said, can you do it again? The next day, I'm still not 100%. He said, sure. He did my paper out for like a week, and I was feeling better, right? But I caught on to something. I realized that if I had him do the paper out for the whole 30 days, the whole month, the amount that I'm paying him is still less than what I'm going to be making myself. So I said, what if I get another paper out? I have him continue to do that one. I get another paper out, and then I find someone else to follow me, another kid to follow me, and then I have him do that one. Then I get another paper out, and that's what I did. I had like 5 or 6 paper outs. I was making hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month as a young, 15, 16-year-old kid doing paper outs. So that was another entrepreneurial thing going on for me. And then, of course, once I got started in direct sales, that was another entrepreneurial endeavor. So those were all entrepreneurial endeavors. And then, of course, when I, did the training, started doing my training company, that was another entrepreneurial endeavor. So, yeah, I've been an entrepreneur at heart and in practice, really, for quite a while, but I just didn't know what it was. I wouldn't have called myself an entrepreneur when I was 12 years old, of course.
Right.
But that's really what it was. That's really what it was.
You know, what's fascinating about your story and what resonates with me is I always talk about coming from a family of entrepreneurs and being traumatized by the time clock when I was 27 because I didn't know that, grown people actually had to ask to go to lunch in the bathroom and stuff like that. And so it was culture shock. But one of the things that I talk about all the time is although my family had some level of success as entrepreneurs, they never told us that we could be entrepreneurs. And oftentimes that still happens today. And kids don't know that they can be entrepreneurs. Like you were how old when you had the Atari? And you were... Yeah,
about 12 or so, yeah.
For 10 cents, come and play my game. And you were intelligent enough to say, you know what, don't bring me all those, I don't want a Michael Jackson doll. Can everybody just give, $5 or whatever and put it in on this Atari and then charge your friends to come and play? And I think that's so important for people to hear because we still tell the same story, Jerry. I don't know if you were in on the secret, but we still tell our kids that the way to be successful and wealthy is you go to school, you get a good job, you get a degree, and we still sell that to our kids.
Yeah, I hear it all the time, that's for sure. And that gave me a good opportunity to tell my kids how we all have superpowers. And so I told them, I said, look, creativity is one of my superpowers. Yes. And I told them, I said, guess what? You have a superpower too. And you have a superpower. The key is to figure out what it is. And the quicker you can learn about it, the better you can be at developing it and leveraging it. And then we had a good conversation about like grades. I said, let me give you guys an example about grades. How many of you noticed that in some classes, you just so happen to be better at than other classes? Like you just so happen, like, for example, you, Jelani, one of my kids, I say, you're really good at science. You're very good at science. You notice that? You notice that you tend to be better at science than you are at math, for example. He was like, yeah. I said, science is like one of your superpowers. And he was like, oh, yeah. And then with my other son that was in the car, Isaiah, I said, you notice how you're really good with history and with and he's a violinist and with playing that violin. You're really good at those things. He's like, yeah. I said, those are some superpowers for you. You might not be as good in some other areas and so forth. I said, so the key, instead of just focusing on what you're weak at all the time and spending all your energy on developing your weaknesses, I want you guys to focus on what you're strong at. And I want you to develop that strength, and I want you to leverage that strength, because people are going to pay you more for exuding your strengths than they are from your weaknesses. And here's the key, is what I told them. I said, the key is that if you operate from a place of excellence, that's where people are going to be willing to pay the big dollars. But if you operate from a place of just good, if you're just good at something, people aren't going to pay as big dollars for someone who's good versus someone who's excellent. And I said, the only thing you're going to get excellent at are the things that you already have a strength in. So if you have a strength in it and you learn to leverage that strength, develop it and leverage it, that's what's going to set you up in a big way. Whereas if you just got a weakness and you can learn to get better at that weakness, yes, you can become good at it. But if that's your primary focus, you're not going to make as much money. I said, there's a lot of things I'm not good at. But guess what? I don't focus on those things. I said, I make sure that my weaknesses, whatever I'm weak at, I make sure they don't hinder my strengths. So I am going to work on them to make sure they don't hinder my strength, but I'm not going to try to become excellent at it. But the things that I'm really, really good at, I have a high level of strength, that's what I'm going to really work on. And that's what I'm going to develop. And I said, that's why clients are sending me lots of money. And I happen to have some pictures that I just took of some clients that just sent me some money on my phone. And I showed them. I said, look, I got this amount of money right here. Guys, I'm putting in 6 hours to make this. And it's like 5-figure sums, right? Yeah. It's like big money. And they look at it like, what? 6 hours is all you're paying? I said, yes, because they're not paying me per hour. They're paying me for the value.
Yes.
And I just so happened to spend my whole life getting good at this to where I created a very high value proposition to where these people can spend days or weeks or months and still never get it to this point. So they don't care about how much time it takes me. They just want the value. And so I gave them, that was their lesson for that 7-minute drive or 8-minute drive or whatever. That was their lesson for that. And every morning I try to give them a lesson. But creativity is definitely one of my superpowers, I would say.
I think, and maybe maybe and maybe it's without knowing, that one of the things you're doing is you're planting these seeds in your children that they're never going to forget. And, it's just like, well, this is a 7-minute drive, but these are the 7-minute drives that they will remember, that will absolutely change their life. And they will probably always remember. My dad doesn't work, for an hourly wage. It's one of the things that my son's in law school right now. And he's kind of like, when he graduated undergrad, they offered him a job for $76,000. And my kid's like, I don't think I want that. Anybody else would be completely excited at 21 years old. They got a job paying $76,000. But my kid's going, I don't think I want that, kind of thing. So that 7-minute drive is probably what's going to really propel them in their life to this level of success and cause them to use and activate their superpower. And I think you are so right about it. And that is why I love Jerry Clark, because the jewels are great.
And you know what, Collette? Here's the interesting thing, Collette, about that. Is I don't care if my kids get a job. They can get a job. I don't have a problem with that. The whole point is just use your superpower. If you're going to get a job, that's fine. Just be really good at it and be like the most valuable employee in that place, if that's what you're going to do. So my household is not about saying, for example, being an employee is horrible or bad or anything. No, it's not about saying any of that. It's about, having them understand how we get paid in the marketplace, though.
Yeah.
So that's what I want them to understand. They're getting paid for the value they're bringing. That's what they're getting paid for. As long as they understand that, you can bring that value to this job over here. You can bring it to the government over here. You can bring it to the marketplace over here as an entrepreneur. You can bring it either way you want to bring it. Just bring it, because whatever they want to do, I'm game. It's their life. That's what I always tell them too. Look, this is your life. You guys are going to be the ones that have to deal with this, not me. You're dealing with your own life. And so I'm doing my best to set them up. And you're right. I'm programming them, and I know it's purpose, some purpose. Mm-hmm. So they are, because my oldest son is 33 years old, and he's been programmed to the hilt. Yeah. And now he's enjoying his life. He travels like every month or two. He goes to some exotic place in the world and stay for about a month and kind of hang out, and then he come back and do his thing over here and all this other stuff. And he's a CPA. So he went out and did his regular, got his master's degree in college and the whole 9 yards. So I don't really care what they do, as long as they put themselves on the track to where they're, number one, adding value. Number two, they are living in their passion. Those are the two things I try to really get them to activate. Live in your passion, add value in the marketplace somehow. However you do that, that's fine. And utilize and leverage your strengths. So those are, I guess, the three things: leverage your strengths, live in your passion, and add value.
Yes.
So that's really what I'm putting out there for them. And then I want them to know I'm not going to judge whatever you end up doing. I'm not going to judge it. It's whatever it is. That's great, dude. Just be real good at it, whatever it is.
Yes. Be responsible for bringing your greatness to the world.
Yep.
Love that. So before we wrap up, tell us about your greatest accomplishment thus far on your journey.
I would say my greatest accomplishment, besides, my kids and my wife and, my family and that type of stuff, of course, that's always a great accomplishment. I would say that it's the influence and the impact that I've been able to have with these people that you mentioned that I have got a chance to train and coach and things like that. So I've got a chance to train and coach a lot of people, but a lot of these people have gone on to go from nothing to something pretty significant. They've been able to completely transform the quality of their life by listening and being encouraged and being coached and being trained by the information that has come out of my mind through that creativity that I mentioned. And so they've been able to use that information and really being able to, and I tell my kids certain things that I know is going to deeply impact them at a subconscious level, and it's going to impact the way they show up on this planet later on, with other people. And I do that on purpose. So that's the same thing I do with other people that I come across. I instill and I implant inside of them a different reality than what they've already bought into. They just allowed themselves to buy into the reality that they can't do this and they can't do that and they can't have that and they can't create that. They allowed themselves to buy into that. So I'm going to give them an opportunity to buy into another version of it's like an alternate universe version of themselves. I'm going to give them another version of that. And then they can choose to live into that. Now, some people aren't going to live into it, but some people it's going to spark something inside of them that's going to get them thinking at least. And that thought could lead to another thought that's of empowerment in nature. And that thought can lead to another thought. They say train of thoughts, right? Mm-hmm. Once you get on this one thought, that's where train of thought came from. And so I do my best with almost everybody I meet to at least put them on a train of thought. I might not be able to completely get them to that destination, but I'm going to get them on this train of thought. So then that train is going to, how those train tracks, you can turn a little knob and it shifts. Okay, I'm going to put them on a different trajectory at least. Now it's going to be up to them where they ultimately end up. But at least I nudged them on a little bit of a different trajectory. And so that's been the biggest impact, I think, or the biggest, one of the biggest accomplishments that I've been able to do is actually not only do that, but know that I've done it through all the people that told me. Now, if all the people that have told me that it's because of what I've been able to do that has assisted them and been able to do all this great stuff that they're doing, I know that means there's a lot more who are not even telling me. Yes. So there's a lot more that I've really been able to influence and impact. And that is one of the things that allows me to when I go to bed at night, to feel really good about, being able to tap into and utilize some of what I have to make a difference in other people's lives.
Well, I will tell you here in front of everybody that I am most certainly one of those people. I am always talking about Jerry Clark and the Rhino theory and the magic of colors and talking about this in the middle of meetings and helping people to understand why someone's train of thought was that way, because I have been a student of Jerry Clark. So I personally want to say thank you for offering the world your greatness, because I believe it's what we owe each other. And all of us aren't brave enough to offer the world our greatness, but for those of us who are brave enough to take this journey, because it's not an easy thing to do, but it is one of the most rewarding things I believe we could ever do. And Jerry, before you go, what is one word or quote that you would leave for the new or aspiring entrepreneur?
That's a good question. And first of all, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. For sure, it's always great hearing things like that. So a quote or a word or phrase or something that I can say. Well, I mean, one quote that comes to my mind is a quote by W.N. Murray, who's kind of given this quote in Goethe as well. It says, until one is committed, there's hesitancy, a chance to draw back. Always ineffectiveness concerning all acts of initiative. The moment one definitely commits oneself, providence moves too. A whole stream of events will occur that a person would have never dreamed that could occur. And so the whole point is that whatever you believe, just begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. So that quote, if you think about it, until one is committed, there is a hesitancy, a chance to draw back. That's a powerful quote. If you go back and you can Google it, and it's something like that. I know I kind of paraphrase it a little bit because I'm just going off the top of my head. But that quote is a very powerful quote. I want you to think about that. The other thing that I want you all to think about is that if you want to invent something in your life, it starts off with an intention, right? So it starts off with an intention, and eventually you want it to become an invention. So invention means you want it to show up. Now, the reason why most intentions never become inventions is because of the thing in the middle that I'm going to share with you right now. There's something in the middle. So on one side, you have intention. On the other side, you have invention. So intention is what you would like. Invention is what, you would like to show up, to actually show up. And then in the middle is attention. So what happens is a lot of people, they have this intention, but they put their attention on something that's different than the intention. And so the invention that shows up is something different than the intention. You see? I hope everyone got that. So let me say it again. We got it. So you have the intention. You want it to show up as an invention, but you put your attention on something different than the intention. And so your invention is something, but it's not something that you intended on.
That is some good stuff, Jerry. I am so appreciative of the fact that you would come and share with me and my audience. And I'm honored to have been able to do this today. How can people connect with you? Social media platforms, Facebook, I'm Jerry Rhino Clark. That's my handle on Facebook and on Twitter. And I think on Instagram as well, it's Jerry Rhino Clark, JerryRhinoClark. And then, of course, people can go to my website, clubrhino.com, or reach out on Facebook or something like that. I'm not on the social media that much. But when I do get on, I check it out and say hi to people and all that stuff. So I'll definitely look forward to being able to, say hi to anybody. And if there's anybody, of course, that are seeking to turn what they know into dough, in other words, if you want to turn some of your intellectual property into something that can benefit other people moving forward, that's obviously what we specialize in. And so you can reach out. We'll be more than happy to chat with you about that as well. Awesome. Thank you so much again. You have been listening to REAL-Eyez Destiny Radio with Collette Portis and the phenomenal Jerry Clark. And I am absolutely sure that you have enjoyed this as much as I have. Remember that you owe the world your greatness. You are great. So be that at every moment in your life.
Next week on the REAL-Eyez Destiny Radio Show.
It's our duty to have the seeds of greatness that are within us sprout by serving others, right? And the energy exchange of money, right? When someone invests in you, when you invest in someone or something you believe in, that's like a sacred exchange. And I think people have commoditized, just money and how fast and easily it's able to pass through our fingers.
The REAL-Eyez Destiny Radio Show is brought to you by author and certified trainer Faye Hill's Master the Art of Giving, a guide to funding church projects with no debt. Order your copy on Amazon.com, Amazon Kindle, or faye-hill.com now. Until then, follow Collette on Instagram at Collette Portis and Tap the Mic Radio on Facebook. And don't forget to join the Goalie Movement. Are you ready to grow your team, increase your revenue, and build your legacy? Let Goalie guide you to success. Order your Goalie bundle today at Amazon.com or ColettePortis.com. I'm Dorian J. This has been a Collette & Co. TMRN production.